Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
We're looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man, and back with us today we have Rick and Julia Ingham from the Mad Max Minute. Welcome back, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
We are thrilled to have you back. Today we are looking at Iron Man Minute 108. The minute starts with Iron Monger blowing up a bus with his shoulder rocket, and it ends with Iron Monger kicking in his booster rockets in pursuit of Iron Man up in the sky.
Here's my big explosion right here.
This is what you were waiting for, Pete.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I love the cartoon, like doing the old, thrust the Iron Man face right in the camera trick. I think that's really fun.
That's straight out of Die Hard 2.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's funny that you go with Die Hard 2. I was going to say something straight out of like Looney Tunes.
Yep. Oh.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of Die Hard 2 that feels straight out of Looney Tunes. I actually really love that moment when he does come right up to the camera and his arm like wipes right in front of the camera, and you get a great little noise with it. I don't know. It's just kind of a little whirring sound that happens as his arm swings by. I don't know why I find it so satisfying, but I do.
It's like a droid sound, right?
Right.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the minute, we've been talking about Roxxon. That is a fantastic, like the very opening frame of this minute when Obadiah is targeting the bus with his laser rocket. You get just that fantastic Roxxon Corporation logo back there. It looks lovely. It's very nicely put.
Yeah, I really like the first frame of this minute because it's the kind of thing where the Ironmonger's helmet is perfectly centered in the middle of the frame. You've got a lot of really nice dark colors, but also the bright of the eyes and the bright of the sign. I think it's pretty much the same blue, but then you've also got the clash of red shining off the helmet from the laser. This is the kind of thing where, hey, if you're poking through movies looking for desktop backgrounds, I would submit that this would be a good one to use.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a frame full of villainy. You've got the villain of this film with his villainous weapon and a villainous corporation highlighted behind him. Everything about it works. You know what? It's funny you brought up his helmet. This is a point that I don't think we've brought up, but they had literally just finished designing the Iron Monger helmet 2 days before they were going to be filming with it, because they still had kind of the Crimson Dynamo costume as the costume that was going to be, as the battle armor, I guess you would say that the Mandarin was going to be using. And I mean, even in the script that I'm using to reference this, it's still, even through all of this with Obadiah Stane, it always is still called the Crimson or the Dynamo outfit. And the mask of the Dynamo had a very different design because of the Mandarin's kind of Asian ethnicity. It was kind of connecting kind of some of that ethnicity into the mask. And it took them up until 2 days right before they were filming all of the scenes with it to actually finalize it. So, and I'm glad that they went with this one. It's a nice connection to the Mark I. Everything works really nicely.
Mm-hmm. You can definitely see the through line one to the other.
And it's also fun to look at this and the Ultron, Ultimate Ultron design. You can see a through line connecting the dots between, all the way back here.
Yeah, this particular face kind of surprises me a little bit because it does look a lot like the one that Tony created in the cave. And Obadiah, he upgraded the entire suit, but not really the face too much. I'm just kind of surprised he didn't, visually update it.
Yeah, I wonder if that's not just a way to lean into the fact that, Obadiah is not a creative, artistic individual. He's a blunt instrument, I mean, and that's what this whole suit is about. What's the most efficient way that I can get power, physical power and dominate, this Iron Man creature, where Iron Man is a, it's a creature of elegance.
Well, and I think, it speaks to their mental frames of mind. Tony Stark is very much kind of that person who really is about kind of the sleekness of his designs. He's very much the Steve Jobs, I guess you could say. And, he's kind of looking for those great ways to kind of create fantastically high-level technology, but that is very efficient and clean, Whereas, Obadiah is very much just kind of that military mindset and just looks at it as what is the most efficient killing machine that I can put together. And he's, I think, less concerned about the helmet and more concerned about just the weapons that are going into the outfit. And that's what really, for him, is probably his main focus.
And that difference in design taste is definitely on display this minute as they both take off. Tony takes off with ease and grace and elegance. This suit is a piece of art that he has created. Now, he certainly had more time to do so, but even if Obadiah had had as much time as Tony to test and redo things and redesign, he still wouldn't have created something elegant. And when Obadiah takes off, it is labored and almost painful to watch. And he's this big, chunky thing trying to get off the ground. It's such a stark difference.
Nice.
Stark.
We see what you did there.
And this goes back to what I was talking about on Monday, that the Ironmonger has a weight to it. That this giant lumbering thing, of course it would take this much effort to get up off the ground, because it's not something light and nimble and elegant like the Iron Man suit is. It is this, essentially, a pair of rockets, like literal space rockets strapped to legs, in so much that the legs actually transform into them.
Yeah. Right. Nothing, no great sort of hand stabilizing. It's just, again, it's brute force.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I don't think I was paying attention to his hands at all. But I don't think he really takes advantage of the whole flight stabilizer element that Tony has found so useful.
Right. And
which, again, speaks to the elegance.
Yeah. That's a great...
Or the inelegance here.
Yeah, it's just a lovely sort of side-by-side that we get with them taking off. And to see the plume of smoke, that comes out of Obi's, of the Ironmonger, versus how Iron Man just slices through the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Obadiah was thinking of sending these Ironmonger suits into any sort of situation and expecting them to get in, get out, and not create a very obvious trail of them doing so, he'd be very sorely disappointed, because
this is not subtle.
Yeah. No. People are going to see that column of smoke from a mile away.
Yeah, his launch is very slow and labored, and I do love, right after he takes off, you get that shot of Tony, who for some reason looks surprised, and I don't know if I completely buy into his surprise that Obadiah can fly. It's like, why wouldn't he be able to? He stole your ideas, but I love that idea as he and Jarvis are kind of talking about it, and you see on his HUD, it's almost like they've already analyzed it. You see kind of a little image of the Ironmonger suit pop up, and then like a sub image of the foot pop up, as if he's just kind of analyzing that foot rocket on the spot there. It's kind of cool.
So Tony wants to go to maximum altitude, and Jarvis is helpful in telling him that they've only got 15% power, and he starts mentioning odds. And I have to wonder, is he about to launch into the odds of successfully going to maximum altitude at 50% remaining power? Are they 3,720 to 1? Very much like flying through an asteroid field.
Never tell me the odds.
Because this does have a very Han Solo feel to it. I know the math. Do it.
Right. Considering the moments that Favreau has kind of thrown in as little nods to Star Wars and even Alien. He throws in little nods to other films and genres that he's been a fan of. I wouldn't have been surprised if we had that as a little more clear of a nod.
Yeah. I also really appreciate how it shows that Tony legitimately knows the math. Like, Jarvis could tell him, but no, Tony is the kind of engineer that knows his stuff. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about the character. Sure, he's cocksure and annoying and whatnot, but he has the chops to back it up. And that's kind of his problem. That's why he's so arrogant, is because he actually is that capable. But at the same time, he's also not someone who's just skating through his processes. Like, he's putting the work in behind it, which is 90% of this movie.
Well, to continue the Star Wars comparison, Han Solo has many of the same attributes as Tony Stark in that ego. But when Han Solo says, never tell me the odds, it's because he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right.
He's going to do it anyways. It doesn't really matter what the odds are. But when Tony says it, it's because he already knows what the odds are. He already did the math in his head. And he thinks he can do it anyways.
So did Jon Favreau lose out on an opportunity to get Anthony Daniels to voice Jarvis?
Ew, no. No, he did not.
Wow, there's something I never thought of. Does that mean he would be playing Vision now?
Yes. No, that's not okay.
Oh, I need a recut of this movie with Anthony Daniels' voice. I need it.
I don't know, Julie. I think I'm with you. No, thank you.
I expressed the other day how much I love Robert Downey Jr. in the role of Tony Stark. The casting in this movie, the only person I think who is better cast than Tony Stark is Paul Bettany as Jarvis.
Oh, he works so well.
It's perfect, and I just can't, especially the transition from being just a voice to then being a physical character once Vision comes around. How many other actors could have done both? It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing amount of luck that they cast somebody who does work so well as Vision. Because there are so many people that they could have cast to do voice work. Because, I mean, it's voice work, you know? And I don't know if they had that much foresight. Because Jarvis was not a kind of the robot assistant in the comics. He was an actual butler. And so did they always kind of think, oh, maybe we can use this down the road and let's cast somebody who could potentially work? Or was it just pure kismet that it all kind of lined up and everything was the way it needed to be? Because, man, is Paul Bettany great in both ways, as Jarvis and then as Vision. One other note that I had to point out, because I just love the detail work when they do it with the Iron Man suit, when we get like right about 30 seconds as we push in on him before he kind of continues shooting up into the sky, all of the drag marks across his face where the color has just like scraped away when he was dragged under the car. That detail work is just fantastic. I love seeing that on his face. It just looks so authentic right there.
For those wallpaper hunters, that's at 30 seconds in this, right into this. And it's amazing. It's one of those where, you know, sometimes there are these great shots that would be perfect stills, but there's too much motion blur in it. And this is another one of those shots that's just so crisp.
If you've got a 2-monitor setup, you could do Obadiah on one with the laser pointing off to the right. And then in your other monitor, you have Iron Man on the other, more pushed off to the right. And it would just meld up very nicely.
You don't get this sort of aesthetic technical guidance on many other podcasts. We're glad you tune in here.
The Wallpaper Placement Podcast. That's what we're here for, folks. We do get the two of them now blasting off into the sky. We get a brief moment of Pepper, who clearly hasn't moved. She's been standing still in the parking lot since they took off, or since Tony blasted Obadiah back down through the hole. She is not moved. She's in the exact same spot. I don't know if I buy that, but
right.
This is where I start getting frustrated with what they're doing with Pepper, because I'm like, she is a very active character otherwise. She should be doing so much more. She should be, you know, contacting people and getting things done. And here she is just standing in the parking lot and staring. And I feel like this is a sign of that early Marvel where they weren't necessarily being as responsible with female characters, because I feel like, unfortunately, I feel like Pepper's just turned into not quite the damsel in distress, but certainly an inactive character just standing by the sidelines. And it's a little disappointing at this moment. What do you guys think?
I think it is disappointing, partially because it happened so fast. It was only a few minutes ago that she was, you know, sneaking into Tony's office and downloading the files and facing Obadiah. And figuring out how to get out of that situation and get into Sector 16. Like, she did a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't that long ago.
No, right.
And all of a sudden, she's just standing there.
Yeah. She was the Stark point person to S.H.I.E.L.D., to the authorities. That's agency. And it's gone now.
I'm glad that you mentioned S.H.I.E.L.D. because I would think, instead of her just standing outside, that she would head into the building and see if those S.H.I.E.L.D. guys are okay.
Right. We know 3 of them were taken out, but we know there were more down there.
Because Coulson is her backup.
Right.
like if Iron Monger is coming back, she should see if Coulson can call in a few more guys.
Right.
Because Coulson has S.H.I.E.L.D. at his back, and she doesn't necessarily have a private Stark army that she can call on, but she knows exactly where to find someone who does.
Likewise, this is the property. This is Stark Industries. This is a big complex with a lot of people. We know when Pepper arrived with the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents a few minutes ago, when they're pulling in and parking their cars, there is a guard at the gate. They drive past him. And if you just take the shot of her and instead of pointing straight down at her, if you just kind of tilt the camera up, the guard should still be sitting in the shack. What is he doing through all of this?
Well, he's watching.
Are they calling people?
Yeah, I'm guessing either it's a crossword or a Sudoku puzzle. Right. Maybe he's got a little television that he's watching.
He's got his earbuds in. He doesn't hear anything when he has
catching
those
up on
things.
his stories.
Yep.
His podcast, right? He was an early podcast adopter.
Yeah, 2008, sure.
He's probably listening to Star Wars Minute.
Star Wars Minute, Source Code, Adam Curry, Deep Cuts.
No, it's it is interesting, and that's something that certainly I think is going to come up as this finale of the film progresses. Is where are the security teams at Stark Industries? Why are they not involved in alarms going off? Something's happening at the big arc reactor, which is a huge source of power, potential danger, and there's a giant eruption in the parking lot. I feel like there would be things happening, so we'll keep our eyes on that as things progress. But otherwise, we're now up in the skies with these two, and we jump over back to Edwards Air Force Base as they tap in on this. Now, I don't know if Edwards Air Force Base is just constantly monitoring the skies over every part of the world. Last we checked, they were monitoring Afghanistan. I don't know how this works, but all of a sudden they notice that they have the same signature in LA that they had in Afghanistan, because we have Tim Griffin as our CAOC analyst who says, "Sir, you're not going to believe this. That thing is back." And then James Bethia sees it on the monitor. He's the other CAOC analyst, and he says, "Get me Major Allen," before we're interrupted by good old Rhodey, who I don't know, honestly, how fast he drove. And I know he was in Tony's fantastic Audi R8. But, I mean, he went from Tony's house in just a few minutes all the way to Edwards Air Force Base, which is probably at least an hour drive. And he got there in 5 minutes.
That's what happens when you drive the Audi R8, I guess.
I wonder how they reconciled this sequence had they kept the the deleted scene where he was just in an Audi accident and had the roof ripped
Well,
off
I think that this was a replacement for that. I think that was the initial plan that they had, and then they decided to have the keep the skies clear line that Tony gave him, just to kind of put him somewhere else. So he's now kind of the military guy. He's no longer just Tony's sidekick.
Well, it's nice to actually see him take heed to Tony's request, keep the skies clear. This is the payoff to that joke to that request a while back.
And it's also, in a way, it ends up being kind of a payoff, an interesting set of payoff that I didn't realize was going to happen, where he tells the guy just a training exercise, which is
that's the joke.
Kind of the joke that we had. It was an interesting line that we had Tony tell him to use in kind of the whole thing going on in Afghanistan when he was doing the dogfight with the two jets. Had it been telegraphed that was a setup for this payoff later, I don't think it would have worked as well. But it actually ends up just being this payoff for something that didn't need a payoff. So it ended up really being a great callback to that moment earlier.
Well, not only is it a callback, but isn't it also conforming to the rule of threes? Like Tony mentions, call it a training exercise. Rhodes goes before the press and calls it a training exercise. And so I think this is the third time we hear Rhodey repeat in, second time for him, but third time overall, where he says training exercise.
This film is really good at doing that with the setups and payoffs, and it's something that they've really tapped into quite strongly, and it'll be interesting to see how overall the Marvel Cinematic Universe sticks with that, or is that something that just Favreau is doing really well?
Like, if people haven't caught on by now, it is a really good movie. There's a lot of reasons that people still look at this and say that it's their favorite.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I don't think I have anything else for this minute, guys. What about you guys?
There's really not much left to this minute at all. So
good here.
I mean, if we're going to talk about flying, we should definitely save it for tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of flying stuff to talk about then. So yeah, let's wrap it up for today. We'll be back. But would you guys like to remind everybody, where can they find you online and learn more about you and the Mad Max Minute?
Absolutely. So our main home on the internet is, of course, madmaxminute.com, as I've mentioned before. But we're also available through so many different podcast sources. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Google Play. We're on Stitcher. We're on Spotify. If you've got a streaming podcast service that you like to use, chances are all you'll have to do is type in Mad Max Minute and we will pop right up. There's one that came out just recently, Himalaya. We're on that one. So no matter where you look, all you should have to do is type in Mad Max Minute and you'll be able to find us.
Search it out, everybody. It is worth listening to. And that is it for today's show, everybody. So thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at thenextreel.com/Patreon. Until next time, true believers.